Hi, I'm Eric. This is the Long Box Review comic book podcast, and welcome to my favorites of 2024. Yes, it's that time of year again where I discuss and recommend my favorite comic books that I read from the last year and, surprise, the year before. You see, I never did my favorites of 2023 because I was just too busy at the beginning of 2024, and then it was suddenly May, so I decided that I should just give it up. And not do my favorites of 2023 episode, but I kept thinking about some of the books I read from that year and decided to give you a bit of bonus material right at the top of this show, and then I'll talk about the books from 2024 that I read. So, without further ado, let's get into my favorite comic books. And to start off with, as I said, just a few books from 2023. First up is Zoe Thorogood's It's Lonely at the Center of the Earth. This is a book put out by Image Comics, and here is a description if you are unfamiliar with this one. Zoe Thorogood, who is the writer and artist of The Impending Blindness of Billy Scott and the artist on Joe Hill's Rain graphic novelization, records 6 months of her own life as it falls apart in a desperate attempt to put it back together again in the only way she knows how. This book is an intimate and meta-narrative look into the life of a selfish artist who must create for her own survival, a poignant and original depiction of a young woman's struggle with mental health through the ups and downs of anxiety, depression, and imposter syndrome, as she forges a promising career in sequential art and finds herself along the way. I loved this book. So much so that I keep thinking about it. I want to reread it. One thing to note, I believe in the book, and it's I read it in 2023, so bear with me as my poor memory may have gotten some details incorrect. I believe it's her younger brother that makes an appearance in the book, and unfortunately, her brother took his own life in 2024, and Ms. Thorogood decided to donate the proceeds of the sales of the book for the rest of 2024 after this occurred to donate to organizations that would help with mental health issues. But back to the book, I really, and like I said, I really enjoyed this. I thought it was the most profound book I read that year. It's the most creative in style. So many different cartooning styles that Thorogood uses to describe what she's going through. Additionally, I related to some of what Thorogood described in terms of anxiety. So maybe that is what is making this book loom so large in my memory and my reading experience to this day. Anyway, so based on that book alone, and I have bought The Impending Blindness of Billy Scott. I haven't read it yet, but anything that Zoe Thorogood does in the future, I will be checking it out because I think she's just a very interesting storyteller, an incredible artist. So I will be looking forward to all the future works that she does. Next up is Silver Surfer from Marvel. This is the Silver Surfer from, I think, 2015, 2016? I don't remember now. But this is by Michael Allred, Dan Slott, and others. I read all of these digitally. I believe I bought, I don't know. I can't remember now if I just bought the first volume or the first couple. I don't know. But I remember vaguely now that I bought some volumes, and then I believe I started reading them, and immediately, probably just the first one, and immediately had to go buy the rest of the volumes. And fortunately, I was able to do both through sales on Comixology, I believe at that time, or was it Kindle? I don't remember now. But anyway, it was both. I got the first set from Comixology and the other set from Kindle once that hoo-ha stuff was done. Anyway, I burned through these. So These were an excellent set of books. But first, let me step back a second and give you a description of it in case you decided to pass on this, or you're not familiar with what Silver Surfer volume I'm talking about. Anyway, so the creators here take the Sentinel of the Spaceways on his wildest ride yet, with a very special companion. Meet Dawn Greenwood, the Earth girl who's enabled the Silver Surfer to see the universe with all new eyes and push its boundaries like never before. But that way leads to incredible dangers, like the Never Queen, Shuma Gorath, and Jumbanox, the Giganormous. Say that 5 times fast. From perfect planets to wrathful warriors, from the end of reality to an all-new beginning, they'll travel the length and breadth of space and time and beyond. But what could ever make Norrin Radd willing to once again serve Galactus? Slott and Allred weave a cosmic-powered story of triumph, tragedy, and boundless imagination. Basically, and Dan Slott is, I believe, admitted to this, or is, said it himself, declared it himself. This is Doctor Who in the Marvel Universe, and it is Silver Surfer as Doctor Who and Dawn as his companion, which endears me to the concept anyway. But it's not a pastiche. It is taking all the history and interesting bits of Silver Surfer and grounding him in the humanity of Dawn. So yeah, it's like I said, it's Doctor Who, but in the Marvel Universe. This is the first time I've ever cared, honestly, about the Silver Surfer. Never really liked that character all that much, and he became a very interesting character to me. Probably not to the point where I want to go and read a bunch of old Silver Surfer comics, but however, if you have read this volume of Silver Surfer, and if there's anything remotely like it in the past, let me know, because I'd be interested in checking that stuff out. But if it's just, Cosmic Silver Surfer and the overwrought way in which he was written back when he first appeared in Fantastic Four, which I have read, I don't really have an interest in that. But anyway, I think that this 5-volume set that I read, which is, 5, 10, 15, 25 issues? 20. Anyway, in the mid-20s, this whole set of comic books are one of the very few big 2 superhero graphic novels in the correct sense of the term. So it tells a complete story, and it's wonderful. And so even though I bought this digitally, I have been eyeing the omnibus collection of the whole thing, because I think it's just a wonderful story, and I'd like to revisit it sometime, in printed form. All right, next up is The Me You Love in the Dark. From Image Comics, this collects issues 1 through 5. This is by Jorge Corona and Scotty Young. In case you missed this one, an artist named Ro retreats from the grind of the city to an old house in a small town to find solace and inspiration without realizing the muse within is not what she expected. It's a dark and disturbing story of discovery, love, and terror. Boy, that's not quite... it is. Generally, yeah, I guess that is true. But I bought this trade because I was hearing others on podcasts talk about these issues. And so I decided to check it out. I just adore the title, The Me You Love in the Dark. That's just a great title. This is completely unexpected because, I have this vision of Scotty Young doing certain, very specific things. And this is not that. This completely surprised me. The ending. So I picked it up. I started reading it, and the ending to issue 1 creeped me the F out. It was very good. I'll just say that. It's a ghost story, a haunting of a place, and then a haunting of a young woman. Because the story quickly and obviously became about a person who was in an abusive relationship. And so I went from amused surprise to simmering anger, I guess, through the whole thing, just in the way that Ro is treated by her companion as the series goes on. Again, like the other two books I just talked about, I continue to think about it, even here in early 2025. So, like I said, you should check this out if you haven't. The art, the Jorge Corona art, is a bit. It kind of has a bit of a whimsical flair to it at times, but oh my God, Corona is able to convey the looming terror, the darkness. It works on so many different levels, and I just really appreciate it for that. And then finally, for books from 2023 that I wanted to highlight is the graphic novel Sunburn from Image Comics. This is by Andy Watson and Simon Gain. And this is what it's about. Rachel is a teenager who lives in a gray suburban life in gray suburban England. It's a world of scrambled eggs every Tuesday, brown sauce, and warm beer. With her summer already mapped out for her, a job working at the butcher and a caravan holiday in Clacton, she longs to be treated as an adult. When a family friend invites her to spend the summer with them in Greece, she jumps at the chance to escape her life. The Warners are everything her parents are not: glamorous, sophisticated, and carefree. When Rachel meets Benjamin, the handsome young friend of the Warners, she soon learns that on a small island, everyone knows each other's business and feels the pain of growing up. I don't actually have a lot of notes on this one, other than to say that it was a wonderful and somewhat sad coming-of-age story set in Greece, and the artist Gain captures the imagery of the country and climate very well, to the point where I feel like I'd been there, like I'd seen pictures of a trip that I took there. So that's incredible. The story of Rachel and this family, the Warners, especially Mrs. Warner, I almost said something that I would regret. I would not want to spoil anything if you go read this, but it's in. Just say that no, I don't want to say that either. Mrs. Warner is a very complicated woman and has an interesting relationship with her husband and other people on this island. I'll just say that. How about that? But I think it's a wonderful story. It was really cool to see Rachel grow up during that summer that she's there, as depicted in the book. So this is one of those books where I would love for my daughter Maddie to read, and I'd love to talk to her about it. All right. Anyway, that's it. That's it for 2023. Thank you for indulging me because I really wanted to talk about it. There were other books on my 2023 list, but I just, in the interest of time, and it really is about what I read in 2024. Those were the top. Those are the top ones that I decided that I wanted to talk about. And here are the top ones for 2024. And I believe, if memory serves, I read 545 comic books in 2024. And of those 545, here are the ones that I was just blown away by or have some emotional connection to in various ways. So to start off with is Wonder Woman. The Danielle Sampere, Tom King, and others a volume of Wonder Woman. During 2024, I read issues 4 through 15. And I read those digitally on the DC UI app, but I have been buying the trade collections because Sampere, I'm gonna go right to my thoughts about Sampere. I was blown away by Sampere's art. He seemed to come out of nowhere. I know he's done other work at DC. What was it? Whatever preceded, I can't remember it now. Whatever the event was that preceded Absolute Power, where I was actually quite annoyed with that series because I thought it was going to spotlight the younger heroes, the Titans and Nightwing, and while it did to some degree, it wasn't. I don't know. I was very disappointed with that, and since I didn't have this on my notes, I'm blanking on what what that's called. But he did the art for that, I believe, unless I'm completely off my rocker. And I remember enjoying the art, but I think maybe that was overclouded by my reaction to the story as a whole. Anyway, Samperi just seemed to come out of nowhere for me on Wonder Woman because, oh my God, or maybe he just leveled up his art in some way on this book because it's just beautiful. Anyway, okay. So if you've not read this volume of Wonder Woman, I know there are let's say anti-fans, people who are not fans of Tom King, and I am a fan of Tom King's work, which is partly why I decided to check this. Well, I mean, I was going to check out a new Wonder Woman comic anyway, but the fact that it was Tom King was a no-brainer, a given for me. Anyway, in case you've skipped out on this for whatever reason, here's what it's about generally. When an Amazon is accused of mass murder, Wonder Woman must find her before an elite U.S. strike force does. Failure will mean all-out war between America and the Amazons, but that's exactly what the mysterious mastermind called the Sovereign wants. Plus, there are backup stories featuring Trinity, the daughter of Wonder Woman, which I will say right here, they're just cute, delightful little stories of Trinity at various ages, mostly involving her babysitters, companions, as they grow up. Superman and Batman, and by that I mean Superman's son, who becomes Superman, and Damian Wayne, who becomes Batman. Going forward with the rest of it, captured by a team of villains, Diana Prince finds herself up against the nemesis of our story, the Sovereign, as I mentioned before, wielding the lasso of lies. As her new adversary tightens the grip on Wonder Woman's psyche, will she prove victorious over the web of Amazon lies weaved in man's world? And so basically that is the description of the first couple volumes, of which these issues that I read span. Like I said, it's a Tom King comic book, so I wanted to read it. Daniel Samperi's art, he depicts Diana as beautiful and regal, a strong warrior and a vulnerable woman. The initial plot element of the murderous Amazon seems to have gone by the wayside, however, or I forgot what happened there, which is completely possible. But I feel like it was the inciting incident. It was the opening volley. I don't know what the hell I'm trying to say here, but it was the first thing to kick off the plot. And it became very quickly more about the Sovereign trying to break Wonder Woman, trying to, first capture through his minions, capture and then break her. And obviously that does not work. I don't think that's a spoiler to say because it's a Wonder Woman comic. But the way that Wonder Woman goes about dealing with it, and I think that Samperi and King do a good job of showing that even Wonder Woman has a breaking point or a near breaking point, but she, through her indomitable will and her compassion, she is able to, at least so far, able to get through that. So I really like that. And so if King and Samperi set out to show how great Wonder Woman is, I think they are very much succeeding with this book. Some standout issues of this run of the set that I've read. Number 4, which was about the dying boy and his wish to spend time with Diana, even during the early days of the whole Amazon frame up going on. She does this for this dying boy, and it was just a wonderful, heartwarming story. Mentioning things that I think about over time. That is one of those issues. Another one is number 5, which features the contests against the Wonder Girls that Diana has, and What Donna does as her choice of contest is just hilarious. And it was delightful to see. And then jumping ahead several issues, and not that the issues in between are bad or anything, although the Absolute Power tie-ins were maybe not so much, not great, not so great. But number 14, I loved for everything involving Steve Trevor, Diana, and the birth of Trinity. And so this whole from issue 1 through issue 14, and all the backups that are in it featuring Trinity. It's like, well, who's the father? How does that work and all this stuff? And so that is revealed. And I want to say more about that situation, but I don't want to spoil it in case you haven't read it. But oh my God, King often throws in a powerful status quo change, and the delivered on that for sure in terms of Wonder Woman. So anyway, like I said, go check it out if you haven't. All right, next up is a couple volumes of a title called Third Shift Society. This is from Webtoon Unscrolled, and this is by Meredith Moriarty. So this is a Webtoon comic that was collected in a couple volumes, and I just adored it. Heads up. What it's about is, here's a description anyway. Life's funny. 1 minute, you're jobless, deep in debt, and on the verge of eviction. The next, you're in a fight with a monster and getting a job working for a paranormal detective with the head of a jack-o'-lantern. It's an age-old story. Now the clumsy but determined Ellie, who's recently discovered she has strong psychic powers, and her pumpkin-headed boss, Ichabod. Come on, that's just funny, right? Have to team up and fight the things that go bump in the night. That's pretty much volume 1. And then for volume 2, Ellie and Ichabod have some supernatural solves under their belts, and Ellie has her psychic powers more or less under control. All they're up against now are cryptic witches, sinister demons, and some ancient monsters hell-bent on escaping their psychic prison. What could possibly go wrong? I did talk about Volume 1 a bit on my March 2024 pull list review episode. I believe I also talked about both volumes a little bit on an episode of Meanwhile at the Podcast with George and guest Shane from CGS. That was one of my recommendations during that discussion. So if you wanted to hear more about any of this, you can go check out those episodes. Anyway, like I said, I love this series. Moriarty keeps the art simple and accessible, and the world sort of matter of fact, despite the supernatural elements. That's a horrible description of it, but it's just like clean lines and simple colors, but it works. It totally works, even though you've got all this magic and monsters and vampire, just all different supernatural stuff going on, but it's not dark. Maybe that's what I was trying to say. It's not dark and moody. It's just this young woman who's discovering her supernatural abilities, working with a pumpkin-headed guy as they combat these supernatural things. And then in volume 2, definitely the world opens up to allow for even more examination of this universe, and I love it. I do think it's more geared for young adult readers, but I was completely charmed by these books, the characters, and especially the developing partnership / relationship between Ichabod and Ellie. So I'm completely looking forward to the third volume, if there be one. I hope so. Oh man, the books are just so much fun. It was just fun to read. My next book, however, not on the fun side, at least in terms of story. This is a one-shot called Sunflowers from Silver Sprocket. This is by Kizzy Young. And this is what it's about. An autobiographical comic about one person's experience living with bipolar, one disorder. From mania to depression to the balance beam of the everyday, Sunflowers explores the human complexity of an often misunderstood disorder with honesty and vulnerability. I did discuss this briefly, very briefly, in that March 2024 Pull List Review episode, the same as Third Shift Society. But at the time, I believe I said I wanted to highlight this as in a one-hit wonder episode, and I still may. But again, this is one of those books where I kept thinking about all through the year, the rest of the year. Here it is, almost a year later, and I still think about this book. It was the most beautifully executed comic book I read in 2024. Besides the wonderful visuals, the limited and muted color palette really makes this book stand out. It was so well executed by Ms. Young. The cover and previews is what caught my attention, and you wouldn't think that the comic book would be about such an intimate and sometimes disturbing condition. And it was very eye-opening for me. And I wish I had a better art vocabulary to talk about that more, just the way that Ms. Young laid out the pages and really just about the colors. Cause like I said, they're muted to me, but I don't know. It was so effective and very creative and interesting. Yeah. So, because of this one shot, I will be watching for more of Kizzy Young's work. In fact, she recently announced her new graphic novel at the time of this recording called Hello Sunshine, which will be out in September. And yes, I will be ordering that. All right, next up is Nightwing. And for those of you who have been listening to the show for a while, or seen my social media posts, I'm a huge Nightwing fan, Dick Grayson fan, so it's probably no surprise. I read issues 109 through 118 in 2024. This is by Tom Taylor, Bruno Redondo, Sammy Basri, and others. Okay, I've talked before about Nightwing, and I just want to say, because it has that run has ended with issue 118. This entire run that started with issue 78 has been fan-freaking-tastic. It is, to me, the definitive Nightwing run, and that is my expert opinion. Some highlights about that run of books. I loved how Bruce shows up to cover for Nightwing as Nightwing when Nightwing has his fear of heights issue that was introduced. I love how Bruce treats Dick like a son and an adult. They don't fall into that stupid trope of an overbearing father and a son who's trying to break out of his father's shadow type stuff. They have a respectful relationship, and I really dig the way that Taylor and Redondo especially depicted that between these two individuals. I'm just over gloomy Batman and the way he treats his family. It's just that's an abusive relationship, and so I'm glad they're at least in some ways they're getting away from that. And other books too, so that's good. And also, and probably more especially, I love the Babs Dick relationship as depicted in this title. It's the most adult and respectful depiction of these two I have ever read. And as Dick says when he goes and talks to his parents at their grave, that is the woman that he's going to marry. Not wants to, going to. And I am all for that, and I can't wait for that issue. It should be an oversized special. Are you listening, DC? Anyway, and also, who doesn't love Bitewing? I mean, come on. Dogs. I love dogs, and I love characters who love dogs. So the ending in issue 118 brought tears to my eyes. But it showed yet again how loved and respected Dick Grayson is in the DCU, which is partly why that one, whatever the event comic. Why can't I think of that I talked about before? It's apparently I disliked it so much that I've tried to erase it from my mind. Anyway, one comic I do not want to erase from my mind, is Fantastic Four from Marvel. I realize that this started in 2022, but I didn't start reading it until 2024. But I read issues 1 through 25. This is by Ryan North, Iban Coelho, Ivan Fiorelli, Leandro Fernandez, Francesco Mortarino, Carlos Gomez, and others. Anyway, I started hearing good things about this volume of Fantastic Four and decided to check out the first issue on the Marvel app. And then I binged read the next 12 issues. What a fun and, dare I say, definitive, if I can use that same term, back-to-back describing titles, run of Fantastic Four with the family separated at first in the first few issues. And I read an article with North, or an interview with North, where he talked about he wanted to separate them so that we as readers would get to know them again, and the situation they're in, and then they brought them together as a team and how those dynamics work. And also where the Fantastic Four were in the Marvel universe at that time, what the status of where they are and what's going on with them. But then when they get back together, they do science hero things in the grand Fantastic Four tradition. And some of this stuff, I just love the fringe science stuff and the superhero science stuff that North and company explore throughout this run of 25 issues that I've read. And I think I've read, at the time of this recording, I've already read issue 26. It was so good, so good. But more importantly, I love how the characters interact, the family dynamics again, the comedy, the stakes of some of the things that they're dealing with, and just the overall inventiveness of the stories. It's just, North is just bringing some awesome ideas to bear in this comic book, and I'm all for it. Some highlights from the issues, and I forgot to put down which issue numbers. Anyway, in one of the issues, Dr. Doom shows up, but he strips them of the power of speech, preventing them from being able to do anything. And I thought, what a cool way to incapacitate your adversaries, at least temporarily, by introducing a language virus, essentially. in their brains. I just thought that was so cool. There's a story about an AI that becomes sentient, but it turns the whole trope around because it doesn't want to subjugate and murder humanity. It just wants to grow and learn and explore, and then something bad happens that was really kind of devastating. And then there's the I think it's a couple issues where the Fantastic Four go to Dinosaur Marvel U, and you see all of the various versions of the Marvel characters as dinosaurs. It's just, it was so much fun. I even enjoyed the Blood Hunt tie-in comics. I think there were 2 of them. That's how you do tie-in comics right. So I mentioned before about the Wonder Woman Absolute Power tie-ins were a little underwhelming, but these were good. This is probably my favorite superhero comic book right now, out of anybody. So if you're not a Fantastic Four fan right now, you are missing out. All right, next up is 8 Billion Genies. From Image. This I read this in the hardcover collection. It collects the 8 issues of the series by Charles Soule, Ryan Brown, and others. If you had one wish, what would you wish for? What if everyone else on the planet had one wish too? That is 8 Billion Genies. 8 seconds after magical genies grant every person on Earth one wish, the world is transformed forever. And that's just the beginning. All right, that solicitation had me from day one, and I patiently awaited the collected edition, and it was worth it. While I initially wondered what story could be told when 8 billion people get a wish, and then also I was thinking, what would I wish? What would you wish? I like I like that Soul and Brown sidestep the trope of any sinister action by the genies, leaving humanity to its own eventual, spoilers, self-destructive devices. But it doesn't end there. It's not just doom and gloom. And the hope that is present in this overall story is maybe the most interesting aspect of this tale. There is kind of a cornerstone of the story where there's a bunch of people in this bar and the bar, at least in the first few, or at least first several issues, I think, where the bartender, his wish is to keep the bar and anybody in it safe from whatever is going on outside of the walls of the bar. And that becomes an interesting idea too. Anyway, I don't want to say any more about that because there is a surprise involved with that. But you do follow the various people in the bar through their stories, at least some of them. And then, like I said, it goes beyond, it goes beyond that. And, what does that mean for Earth and the people of Earth and the genies? And it's just a wonderful graphic novel. I will use that term for this as well. So, check that out if you haven't, because it was one of the wonderful reads of last year. Next up is Absolute Wonder Woman, issues 1 and 2 from DC by Kelly Thompson, Hayden Sherman, and others. Am I jumping the gun a bit here with only 2 issues? Let's find out. So, if you, like me at first, decided to skip out on the DC's Absolute universe of books, this is what this is about. In a different, darker world, Diana of Themyscira was not raised in paradise, but instead was exiled to the underworld as a baby and raised by an enemy, Circe. Darkness and exile did not destroy her. Instead, they made her all the stronger, honed into an even greater weapon by tragedy, danger, and magic. Long denied her Amazonian heritage, Diana has finally reached the time for her to rejoin the surface world. Armed with new weapons forged in hell and a mission that looks a bit more like justice than peace, Diana will not be stopped on her quest to save the world and discover her place in it, even if that means carving it herself. And so, like I said, I was not at all interested in the Absolute Universe of books, but because I do have the DC Universe Infinite app, I was going to check them out just to see, were they going to fall on their face or were they going to surprise me? And oh my God, this one surprised me. I was not looking forward to, things like like I just said, looks a bit more like justice than peace. That's seems antithetical to what Wonder Woman whatever our Wonder Woman means to you, my Wonder Woman means. But again, I was surprised. While in the main Wonder Woman book, the creative team is showing how Wonder Woman works and why she's important in the main DCU, the Absolute Wonder Woman team is doing the same thing, but in a different and engaging way. And that's not a slam against what Samperi and King are doing. But in Absolute Wonder Woman, they're coming at it from an opposite end of the Wonder Woman mythos. I love how Diana uses magic as a weapon. Not just a weapon, but as a resource, as much as her gigantic sword that she uses, compared to normal DCU Diana, who uses her lasso of truth and compassion as her main, quote unquote weapons. Sherman's art reminds me a bit of Javier Rodriguez's panel layouts. So some really interesting panel layouts in the book as well. But it's got some, and this is in large part to the coloring as well. There's some grittiness to it. Diana is not, the Diana of Absolute Wonder Woman is not depicted in the beautiful statuesque way that Samperi does in the main title. But that's perfect for this comic book, the way that Sherman is doing this. I have read beyond that, and I continue to love Absolute Wonder Woman. So you be the judge. Tell me if only 2 issues is enough for me to say this was a favorite of 2024. I just have, I expect great things coming out of this. At least the first arc that we're going to get. But good stuff. Speaking of good stuff, and also kind of in the artistic style as well. But anyway, this is The Low, Low Woods from DC Joe Hill Comics by Carmen Maria Machado, Danny, and others. I read this collection. Well, I read the issues on the DCU app, but it's a 6-issue miniseries. The town of Shudder to Think, Pennsylvania, has been on fire for years. The woods are full of rabbits with human eyes, a deer woman who stalks hungry girls, and swaths of skinless men. When Elle and Octavia wake up in a movie theater with no memory of the last few hours of their lives, the two teenage dirtbags embark on a horrifying journey to uncover the truth about the strange town that they call home. So usually when I see things like wake up with no memory, I tend to get turned off by it. However, I read this because I had just read Machado's memoir, In the Dream House, and I loved it so much. I was looking for, what else has she written? And I discovered, she did this miniseries. And so I obviously went to the DCU app to see if it was there, and it was, and I read it, and it was wonderful. It exceeded my expectations, though probably more for Danny's art. It's moody, surreal, and creepy at times. In fact, there's a woman with a sinkhole in the middle of her body that appears throughout the issue, and then the sinkhole gets bigger and bigger. Anyway, that's just one of the cool visuals that is in this book, along with those other things that I mentioned in the description. Anyway, so if you're looking for something different to read, something more akin to the Vertigo titles of old, or even something Twin Peaks-like, you should try The Low, Low Woods. All right, The Forged, volumes 1 through 3 from Image Comics by Greg Rucka, Eric Troutman, Eric Henderson, and others. I actually read volume 1 in 2023, and then the other two, obviously, in 2024. But I'm including them all together here as a package. I've heard Greg Rucka and Eric Troutman talk about how no one seemed to have known about this book. I mean, as soon as I saw it in previews, I was like, I'm getting this, but I waited until it was collected. So maybe that's what they were reacting to. Anyway, in the 11th millennium of the rule of the Eternal Empress, a squad of planet-smashing super soldiers find their routine mission to be anything but. These are the Forged. They take no prisoners. The creators embark upon an over-the-top pulp adventure of sex, violence, and sci-fi inspired by Conan, heavy metal, and the other comics you tried to hide from your parents. And it is. This is an oversized book, and I've been trying to find more sci-fi like stories in comic books to read, and this was a lot of fun. The characters and setting are interesting, even if the Empress in the story is way over the top, but that works within the context of what they're putting down. The larger size of the issues allows Henderson and colorist Woodard to create a more cinematic experience. It's just, this could be a series of movies if they wanted to adapt these. But I'm just enjoying it for the universe that's being laid out before me, the mystery, the political intrigue, the relationships between the Forged that we get, and then other people that keep coming in and out of the story. One interesting aspect that was not mentioned in the description is that the Forged are clones of supposedly anyway, of the Empress herself. And then there's this whole, or no, are the Forged the clones or the kind of like the advisor type? I don't remember now. I think maybe both. Anyway, there's also these, I can't remember what they call them in the book now, but they're kind of these, psychic, sort of pseudo-religious type character group. And there's something going on with them, but some of them are doing something else behind the scenes. And so that's part of the mystery. Actually kind of reminds me of the sisterhood in the Dune series. And I say that because I just recently watched the movie, the first movie, and then last night, as I record this, last night we watched the second Dune movie. So anyway, some parallels there, but that's fine. I look forward to the next volume. I don't know how long this is going to go on, but I'm enjoying the hell out of it. Another oversized book appears on the list, and this is Somna from Distillery by Becky Cloonan and Tula Lotay. And if you say those names to me, I'm like, yes, please. Set amidst the terrifying backdrop of the witch hunts in a quiet 1600s English village, Somna follows one woman's descent into an erotic escape from the confines of her puritanical world. Yeah, I bought the individual oversized issues, and then I bought the hardcover. That's how much I adore the art of this. The story is, it's good. It's fine. I'll get to that in a second. Let me back up for a second. Both Cloonan and Lotay wrote and drew this book together, with Cloonan doing the scenes set in, I'll say, reality, while Lotay did the largely erotic dreamscape scenes. But either way, it's beautiful, and it is erotic, I will say. I agree with that. And I especially love the Lotay stuff because of the way it's colored, the overlapping. I don't think there's any panels in her stuff. I think it's just like these single pages of imagery just kind of floating there and mixing with each other. It was just wonderful to look at. But anyway, like some of the best fiction, it leaves you wondering if what Ingrid experienced was, I'll just say, a demon. Was it a descent into madness? You don't know by the end. And maybe that bothers some people, but I love that kind of stuff where you're looking at this going, what the hell just happened? What does this mean? And it makes me ponder. And I went back and read the ending again. I'm like, wait a minute, is it this or is it that? What did I miss? Do I need to, should I reread it? Yes. Reread it again to see if I missed something, to maybe put the pieces together. Or maybe it's just one of those endings where it's like, you decide how you interpret it in the way that is satisfying to you. And I love that. I love that. My wife would not, because I actually, when I wrote fiction in years past, I would write endings like that, where it's like, well, what happened? What happened to this character? What's that mean? And that frustrated my wife when she read my stories for me. So anyway, I loved it. Somna was a good book. Another good book, but in a very different way, was Pixies of the 60s. You Really Got Me Now collection from Humanoids. This is by, oh boy. So there's a bunch of names here that I'm going to murder. I apologize. Gief, Jules Moreau, Julio Macaoni, Christian Lachanel, Alberto Zanin, and Fabs Nocera. So this is actually a collection of two issues from the Pixies of the 60s set. I think there are 4 of them. Anyway, in the 1960s United Kingdom, with swinging London underway, fairies enter the light of day. This book collects 2 stories. One is for the character Anan, the story of a young fairy who, drawn by the lights of swinging London, leaves her forest to pursue her dreams of becoming a singer. She meets Stella, a human with whom she quickly falls in love, but her lover's disappearance will make Anan realize that beneath the glitz and glamour of the city, rejection is only a tiny part of what awaits her. And then the second story is Aelith. When she arrives in London to investigate a case of missing persons linked to a strange rite, Aelith gladly accepts help from her childhood friend Elliot, a police officer who expresses clear anti-fairy opinions and blames them all for the major problems in London. When the investigation entrusted to Aelith leads her to the heart of the forest, she makes a most disturbing discovery, uncovering with it a deeply buried wound. I love the 1960s. The films that are set in the 1960s, the fashion of the 1960s. I just dig it. I don't care for the the blatant racism and misogyny and all that stuff, but just the look of the 60s I love. So I'm quite drawn to stories that are set during that time. So I was already predisposed to this alternate world of fairies and humans living among each other. But as you just heard, these two stories, it's not all fun. I did prefer the Anon story a little more, but both of them left me wanting to inhabit this world even more. And there is a second volume, and I will be getting that as soon as I can. So I'm hoping Humanoids, although with the stuff going on with Diamond and the tariffs with Canada and China and Mexico, that the stupid president, sorry, I didn't mean to bring politics into my favorites of 2024, but it's potentially impacting my hobby. Anyway, will we be seeing things in the near future from these smaller presses? Regardless, Anon's tale, there's a predator, I'll just say, out there, and something horrible happens to Anon. But there is some hope in the end with that story. And Aelith, kind of the same thing, but in a different way. I don't want to spoil what the deeply buried wound and the disturbing discovery is for that, but still a fun interesting read. I shouldn't say fun with in relation to this stuff, but wonderful art. They both I forgot to write down who did the art for both these stories, because in my mind's eye, they are similar. So maybe it's the same artist. I don't know. But I love the look of it. The coloring is great, with these kind of, from what I recall, some pastel-like coloring, which, in my brain, equals fairies to some degree. So the overall package was just lovely to read. And like I said, I'm going to read more. Okay. We're down to the penultimate favorite comic book of 2024. This is Hexagon Bridge from Image Comics. I read issues 1 through 5 in the trade collection by Richard Blake. And Hexagon Bridge is about this. After explorers Jacob and Elena Armlin. That's find themselves trapped in a strange parallel dimension. Their clairvoyant daughter Adley and sentient robot Staden embark on a dangerous mission to rescue them. Pushing onward, they encounter mischievous beings amidst uncanny shifting landscapes and discover a world beyond belief. And so I got this because of the covers to the single issues that I saw, and the fact that it's a parallel dimensions, sentient robot, another sci-fi series. So maybe the what you can glean from my reading habits, with some exceptions, is that I was really trying to go for sci-fi stuff, with obviously a lot of fantasy, and I include superheroes in that category as in fantasy. Anyway, so yeah, it was, but it's Blake's art. It's sometimes the sparse tableau, I want to say, because I remember seeing there's this like a vehicle in the distance, and all you see is this empty kind of space around it as it's flying through this, I'll say city. Anyway, but it's just beautifully rendered, and the coloring just fits. I just, oh my God, you got to go look at the covers to Hexagon Bridge and you'll know what I'm talking about. So that's what I really, really loved about it. But then there's also this interesting relationship between Adley and Staden that provides the kind of the heart of the story. And, it's not just like 2001, how it's like a heartless, beautiful looking thing. There is some emotional weight to it. And that's what I look for in stories, not just how it looks, although that is it's comic books, right? So that's got to be that's a huge component to what I react to. But man, if there's no interesting heart to it, then it doesn't interest me. It's got to be about something, in other words. So, all right. Finally, here we go. This is, and probably no surprise to many of you who are listening, but I put on Batman Superman World's Finest, issues 22 through 33, plus the annual, by Mark Waid, Dan Mora, and others. And I mostly include this series because I love the World's Finest concept and execution that started with this title. I've said it before, and I think I chose this. No, I would have this would have been on my list for 2023 as well. So, but I've said it before, I want a World's Finest line of books. And we did have a Teen Titans World Finest miniseries, and more recently, a Green Lantern, Green Arrow one-shot set in that universe. So maybe that whole World's Finest thing is slowly taking over. I don't know. I hope so. And then really the one story arc that was included in that range of issues was the story about the fifth dimensional imps. That really surprised me and how much fun it was, and not just a bunch of goofiness, which when you include a bunch of Mixyzptlks, that could, sometimes be, or Batmite for that matter, because it did include those two characters, but you see a bunch of others. You got to be careful with those characters. Otherwise, it just goes into farce, and you got to be good. You got to be good, and you got to be careful with it. And I think Waid and Mora did a good job of depicting that with that story. All right, that's it. Those are my favorites of 2023 and 2024. What were your favorites? And I listened to other podcasts, and they've been given their lists as well. I've been seeing people post these things on social media as well. But if you would kindly let me know what your favorite books were and what you thought about any of the books that I chose as my favorites, please send feedback to longboxreview@gmail.com. You can also leave voicemail or text me at 208-953-1841, or contact me via social media at longboxreview on Blue Sky. Thanks for listening, and I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.